Hello there! What's going on, everybody? Today we're starting a new show. It is Mando Chat. This is the first episode, and with me is Brendon, Franz, the High Marshal. So thank you for joining us, Brendon. How have you been doing?
Pretty great. Just got back from Warfare weekend. Honestly, just kind of getting everything done around the house. And oh yeah, a new show came out, which is pretty awesome.
It
So
is pretty awesome, and that is what we're going
yeah,
to be talking about. Let me warn everybody, if you're watching with us right now, we are going to be talking about chapter 1 of The Mandalorian first, and then at a certain point we'll also then be talking about chapter 2. Now chapter 2 just came out this Friday, so if you want to watch like maybe just the first part, there will be a specific point where we break off and say, okay, now we're going to go on to chapter 2. But this is a general spoiler warning for the show. There may be some things from the second episode that kind of absolutely creep into some of the discussion on the first episode, but I think for the most part they're separated. So we're going to talk about both episodes. We're going to start with the first one, so I want to give everybody a spoiler warning. We're going to be talking about the show. But yeah, so Brendon and I haven't really talked yet about this show in detail. So this is going to be interesting because we may have some different perspectives. But yeah, but before we do that, also, if anybody doesn't know, if anybody isn't familiar with you, Brendon, tell us a little bit about Warfare Weekend. How did that go, and what else do you have coming up soon?
yeah, for anybody who doesn't know me, I've basically judged every competitive event in North America for Star Wars Legion this past year, with the exception of Nova and including Toronto. So that's been keeping me really busy. I also have some history with X-Wing. So I have a lot of Star Wars knowledge. Also, if it wasn't apparent, I do Star Wars costuming as well. I was the international authority on Darth Revan for a little while. I wrote part of the CRL, and some of my costume is still featured on the 501st CRL for Darth Revan. So when it comes to analyzing on-screen, costumes and lore and history and things like that, I have a little bit of background with that. So I'm definitely amped for this show.
Absolutely, this was a very exciting show, and I'm glad to have you joining us. So let's just jump in and start talking about this amazing show. So episode 1, I like, first off, the name. It's chapter 1, right?
Yep.
Like if you go to Disney Plus, it's gonna say chapter 1, chapter 2, etc. I can't tell you how much I love
Bluetooth
that.
headphones. I
I
do.
because how many times has like another show like, and they did this specifically with Star Wars Rebels, where like the you'd look at the names of the episodes, you could see them in advance, and they were complete spoilers. Is like the death of a friend, and the next one's like, oh, the morning of so and so, and they're like, really? So we know in like three, in like 5 more episodes, we're gonna lose this person, And we got a super
That's
chat from Bleed Green Productions. Thank you, and he says it's Lego Yoda. Well, I'm sure that is definitely going to happen.
that is definitely one of the worst things, and that's any show really. Like I was watching Colony with my wife recently,
Mm-hmm.
and you start getting a little like one sentence description of the episode, and it's like, oh great, now I know everything that happens. Like let me just roll into it not knowing what's going on, and let me discover the episode for myself.
Exactly. This was one of those shows I think they knew people were going to watch anyway.
Yep.
Especially after some of the early previews. And I also like how a lot of the previews, so much of them were from the first episode, which
Right.
really made it great. So the episode opens and we get this classic Western kind of vibe where where our hero, the Mandalorian, hero is the word I'm going to use for right now because I think it's
Sure.
appropriate. But he shows up into this bar and you got the door opening up, and everything just reminded me of a Western, right?
Yeah. I've
Like,
heard that term used a lot.
well, I think Star Wars always kind of started out as like a space Western. It was like like 50% Western, 50% science fiction, and the
Sure.
blending of those two. And this was really embracing that. I feel like, this whole opening scene was very much of that. So I really liked the whole opening scene. It was a little bit predictable.
Sure. Fun fact: the cup is knocked over before the Mandalorian ever enters, and then he gets blamed for it, like right off the bat.
I saw that, and I was like, this guy was just looking to pick a fight. He was a
Sure,
big dude.
yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if that was the intention for him to do it, or if he just thought that the breeze from the door did it. Like his character didn't even realize.
Yeah, he's just that dumb and oblivious. Like
exactly.
Either way, I think it worked.
I think I like the fact that it works on multiple levels there.
Yeah, and I like so right off the bat, like they tell you it's a PG-13 show, and we see that with like severed body right off the middle when he cuts the guy in half with the door.
Oh my goodness, that was
they set the bar for this is on Disney, but this is not like
yes. Now, but I have kids, and I was thinking, can my kids watch this? Or so like the wife and I watched it first, and so like when the door closes right on that Quarren. He's a Quarren, right? I think he's a Quarren.
I think so.
Yeah. I like how they didn't actually they could have been a lot more gory. It was like the perfect.
Absolutely.
They had the sound effect, and you knew exactly what happened, but they didn't go into aggressive detail with it. And I think that was the right call. I think that it was just the right mix of like gory but not gory.
Well, and they kind of did that right off the bat in episode 4 with cutting the hand off. Dr. Evazan or whoever it was that lost their hand in that fight. So like just the implied brutality there, I think is just fine.
Yeah, I think that makes it something that your older kids can watch, and if you're younger kids, you be the judge. I don't tell people how to parent, but yeah, sure. It seemed like that was kind of appropriate. But yeah, so I liked that. I also liked how he turned down he gets the blue guy turned out to be the Mark the whole time. And we learned something about the Mandalorian, and that he turns down this speeder because there's a droid pilot,
right?
And so that kind of feeds in. I had heard some theories that maybe he, there was these scenes of like the little kid, the flashback, and that he was a survivor of the Clone Wars, and that there was that going on. And I thought, that was like a good confirmation that just simply no droids. Loved it, and then we get this the pilot, and I forget his name, but he's in like everything of this speeder.
Cameos galore and totally worth it.
I know. Could you imagine like being like an actor and being like, hey, we have a part for you in Star Wars, like. That's like a dream. That's a dream role. Like you don't have to pay me. I'll just be there. I'll
sign me up.
Yeah, I'll be there. I'll take care of my own hotel. I'll bring my own trailer. Don't worry about it. Yeah. So we do get some really good looks finally at the Razor Crest, and it's a cool ship.
Yeah, I can dig it.
I really do like the ship. I like the design, and I was actually really impressed with the CGI. Like this is a big budget show.
Right.
That's
but still with plenty of practical effects. Like a lot of that interior is still pretty well built out. And it feels like somewhere someone could live. The thing I really want to see is I want to see his crew quarters. And I know that we've kept that air of mystery right now, and we still haven't seen him take the helmet off. But I want to see what happens when the day is over.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. Well, we did.
Let's get personal.
Yeah, we get a little bit inside there as well. But yeah, I love that we have the big budget CGI, but at the same time we also have like puppet aliens. Like in the
monkey lizards, man.
It's awesome. It's awesome. And then but on the factor of the big CGI, we've got the awesome snake or serpent thing, kind of and he gets out and he shocks this thing with that rifle, which is like straight out of the Christmas special.
Yep.
And
yep. That was one of my notes here.
Yeah.
Beat me to it on that one.
Sorry.
No, it's great.
Yeah. No,
but that's great that you spotted that too. Like that's the feel that I've gotten from a lot of hardcore Star Wars fans like yourself is like there are so many little details that are put in that show like the people making this character, and of course it's Dave Filoni. So
yes, it's Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are both like really proven. I think they're proven fans. They love the IP. They love the series. There's a lot here, and and this is great. And I'm going to add something my wife actually said when we
Oh,
watched this, because we were discussing after watching it if it would be safe for the kids, and she's like, yeah, like here was an example where he could have just shot that thing and blew its head off, but he stunned it, to get away. So he wasn't
sure.
like, he wasn't using unnecessary cruelty or whatever, and it wasn't,
Right.
they're not using gore for the sake of gore.
Yeah.
And while that's maybe a somewhat minor thing, I thought it was pretty cool. I thought it
Yeah.
was, yeah.
He's definitely got some interesting principles, and I really like exploring that as we see, not just in this episode, but in episode 2 as well. And I'm sure we'll learn more, figuring out what he stands for.
Yeah, absolutely.
And based on some of the previews and some of the people that he's fighting in those previews, I'm sure we're going to see some of those morals come up and a decision made.
I think yeah, absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. And that's going to be really, I predict that to be like maybe mid-season,
Yeah.
So we inside, we get this, and I'm still on the kind of like the first act where we have the prisoner kind of trying to, explore the inside of the ship. I think this is the first time we get a Star Wars toilet.
That might be. Yeah.
I think it's the first time we've seen. I think maybe the first time we've seen a toilet in space for just about anything. I don't like Star Trek has never been so. They've done showers. I think it's about it.
Right.
I mean, you can pee in the shower, I suppose, but
I don't think Stargate ever did it.
yeah, this is like Firefly. I don't think has ever done. I don't know. I mean, like nobody wants to do it, and this was a really good opportunity.
I want to sidebar here.
Go for
Bleed
it.
Green in the chat actually is talking about the Beskar. So we're kind of not to that point yet, but
Yes.
he was talking about the bar, and so the bar has an Imperial marker on it, and I think obviously this is my interpretation. That's like when you get gold, and it has stamps on it, right?
I think so. Yeah.
They stamp to certify where this was minted, where this was barred.
Oh, okay.
And so in this case, the Empire had stolen that Beskar or acquired it or whatever legal acquisition that the Empire did with it, and then marked it as theirs. This is Imperial Beskar
Right.
at that point, and that's why there was the stamp on it. It wasn't because it was necessarily a currency.
Yeah, it's the equivalency of branding cattle. I would
Yeah.
suggest. Yeah.
Yep.
Now there was
And what
also
was-
currency involved though, because he also paid with the calamari flan.
Yeah, that was great and gross looking. It looked like gelatin,
Yes.
and I was just like, that. I'm not sure I want that in my pocket.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I think that's an excellent explanation as to the Beskar. And while you were doing that, my wife actually just shouted. She said that speaking of space toilets, that I guess there was one in Firefly that I'm forgetting. So
Good call. Because I don't ever think I saw one in Stargate either. So, and all the devices that were there, and then they didn't it was potty humor, but it didn't get gross. It was just like, here's what everybody needs to handle their business.
Exactly. And it's also a kind of a thing. It's like we only do it like once per year or something like that.
Yeah.
So I got a little bit of a rant, and maybe not a rant, but a nitpick. And this is,
Hit me.
I love the show.
Yeah.
I love Star Wars. I'm even happy about things that I'm not super crazy about. So with me nitpicking, it's not me really trying to crap all over the show, but I am annoyed at the whole idea that everybody uses carbon freeze now. Like this dude is just.
You hit another one of my notes.
I mean, okay, because we could talk about this. Why is carbon? All right, so at Empire Strikes Back, it was like, hey, we don't never do this, and it's like, all right, we're gonna try something new. It might kill him,
Yep.
So there's a couple of ways you can look at this. You could say that yes, everybody was using carbon freeze. They just hadn't been using an industrial carbon freeze because that's what Lando had, right?
Sure.
But I mean, look, everything about that is almost exactly straight out of Empire Strikes Back. So
Yep. Even the little bar on the side there with the controls and the life sensors and all that. And this is actually a nitpick I have with the Star Wars Old Republic MMO.
Really?
Yeah, they use carbonite. It's 3,000 years before Battle of Yavin.
I remember this now. I haven't played.
And carbonite is all over it. And I'm just like, this doesn't, thanks guys for just ruining the timeline.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's been like 5 years, I think is roughly the timeline.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's
now it's
five
just
years after Return of the Jedi, but I think there was, I don't know the time frame between Empire and Jedi, but I think it was less than a year.
right, pretty minimal, I think.
Yeah. Enough to,
Um,
a little bit of time, but maybe 6 months. Yeah.
yeah, so we're still talking less than a decade. And
Right.
granted, we've seen quite a few tech jumps in the last decade ourselves, but
In
it's still
Star
like
Wars, tech moves slow.
super slow.
I've always looked at tech as the newer ships are better only because they are newer. Like microchips decay. So an Arc 170 versus an X-wing, well, the X-wing is newer, so that's why
Right.
it's better. It's not like it's not like a leap or bounce. So this may have just been. You could also explain this as, hey, Lando started a fad and it spread like wildfire since Boba Fett brought in. And sure,
Sure.
I'm willing to accept that to a certain extent.
All the
But
cool bounty hunters are doing it.
yeah, but I think the analytical part of me has to step in and say, no, the real reason they did this is because it's recognizable. The common people, again, first episode, you have to hook a lot of people who aren't hardcore Star Wars fans. Some people may have watched this, have never seen Star Wars before, or maybe only seen it once. And so I think that's like the real end of the day explanation is they probably just did this because it would be recognizable and it would be like, oh, I know what that means. Those are bounty,
Yep.
And
And it looked great on camera. Let's
it
be
did.
real.
And the transition to it, like they did the best they could. If you were told you had to use, carbonite, that transition was brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all
Yeah,
right.
I
So
really
yeah.
liked it.
All right. I wanted to rant on that. I'm glad we're on the same sheet.
No, totally. And I was sitting in a room full of hardcore Star Wars 501st people, and we were all just like, come on, guys. Like,
But
so
nitpicking, I think, is a term of endearment because
it is.
if we didn't love it, we wouldn't bother getting to that level of. We would just dismiss the whole thing and say, screw this show. So
Oh, exactly.
nitpicking is something we do for things that we love. All right, so then we get introduced to Carl Weathers, Grief Karga's character, who's maybe not quite such a good guy, maybe a little on the gray area. He seems like he was trying to swindle the Mandalorian a little bit, give him some credits that were no good.
Right. Yeah. Make the most out of it. Like, hey, I've got these Imperial credits sitting around and I need to get rid of them.
Nobody else wants to take them. Maybe I'll. Yeah.
Yep.
Um,
And I like this idea that, like, he's the one dishing out these bounties, and so he's the one providing the information. By the way, for the record, the blue guy did see that it was 7,500 on the puck when he showed him the little holo display.
oh,
So
really?
when he says, "Oh, how much was the bounty or whatever?" that was either a miss or it was him just fast talking and trying to get his way out of the situation, which we very clearly see as part of that character. But the little holo display at the bottom, it had the wanted ad at the bottom.
So
with
he
the
would have
price
known
tag.
exactly. Yeah. No,
Yeah,
that's
so
a really
he was
good catch.
probably just-
I did not pick that one up.
Yeah, he was just fast talking, probably, is my
Yeah,
guess.
you can explain it a number of ways, but it's probably something like they added the graphics in afterwards, and
Yep.
yeah, it
But-
wasn't really a real holographic puck.
Yeah. I do have another nitpick, and again, a term of endearment here.
Okay.
The Trandoshans have really stubby noses.
They did look different. I noticed that, and we see,
Yeah.
we see them quite a bit, and they're very, very much kind of keeping their eye on this whole conversation.
Yeah, well, and their faces are super stubby, and then when we see them in episode 2, like, it's not. It might be the same Trandoshans, I don't know.
Mhm.
I joked around that they were half breeds, that maybe they were like human and Trandoshan, and that's why they had the stubby noses. Unlike Bosk, who has a much more protruded face.
Right. Well, we haven't explored Trandoshan culture that much I think, at least in canon right now, or in what's currently canon. So it's possible that there could be different clans or different, even subspecies within the race. So.
I think we saw some in either Clone Wars or Rebels, but it's been so long my memory is fuzzy. But that's the only canon I can think of, and I don't necessarily read comic books, so there might be some more examples in there too.
I was for a little bit, but I'm really almost ready to boycott the comics after they've been stealing art from everybody in the latest thing. I'm going to sidebar for a minute here. Do you know who Mel Miniatures is?
Not specifically, no.
Okay, so he makes miniatures he sells them on Shapeways. He's a 3D artist.
Okay.
And he does a lot of stuff for Legion, X-Wing, and Armada.
I thought I'd recognize the name.
Yes, he's very, very good. Well,
Yeah.
he had put together a fleet of his stuff. Like I think at some point after episode 8, because once he had made a version of every ship that they had in episode 8, so he had it all out. He had the MC, the Radis, basically, and all the different ships, and then like and then all the little squadrons for Armada. They have their little pegs so they can fit into the bases and everything.
Mm-hmm.
In the last comic that had this Mon Calamari arc in it, where Leia's going to seek help from Mon Cala, the artwork was completely stolen from Mel Miniatures, but it was so lazily stolen. Now, this is a Marvel comic. It was so lazily stolen, they didn't even cut out the pegs. There's A-Wings still have these giant pegs at the bottom of them.
Oh my gosh.
And Eckhart's Ladder and a couple of people all pointed it out on Twitter, and there's videos of it. It's so bad.
Wow.
Yeah, so and they've been doing this for a long time, but this was the most lazy and the most blatant.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so I think somebody's probably getting fired over it, but that was ridiculous. Anyway, that was a little sidetrack. So I like that we get to see that. I guess the Mon Cala have a organic currency.
Yeah.
And it looked like it was like Jello almost, or flan.
Yeah, I wonder if it's tasty or not.
I wonder. Well, I would hope if you're keeping it in your pocket, like it looked like you had. I wouldn't want to eat that.
No, it'd be dusty and lint balls.
So here's an interesting thing, a sidebar from chat, from Chaos Assassin. Chaos Assassin. I don't know how to actually pronounce that, but it's mentioned what if the helmet comes off and it's a woman? They show a woman pulling it off, and I'm sorry, I misread that. You're talking about a woman potentially taking off the Mandalorian's helmet, and I had misread that as what if it was a woman, and I was gonna say that would be really funny, because we know the actor is Pedro Pascal, but here's the thing: what if at the end of the entire season and all these everybody because there's been a lot of people who hated The Last Jedi that are saying they love this show, and there's some kind of because it doesn't have women in it or something like that. And I'm paraphrasing, I'm not doing it justice, but wouldn't it be funny if he took the helmet off at the end and it was a female the whole time, and Pedro Pascal was like, "Gotcha,"
right?
And then now what are you gonna say? Now
that'd be great, because he just got an honorary member induction into the Mandalorian Mercs, I guess. That would be quite great.
Well, he's done enough to promote the show.
Oh, yeah.
And he's obviously still the actor, right? Or at least doing the voice, because you could always say it was voice modulation, in the helmet.
Yeah, well, I mean, they did that with Empress Nest.
And they did that with Leia.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah.
So there's
would,
precedent.
It would be like Samus from Metroid, all over. If they do that,
wouldn't bother me.
That would be mind blown. Absolutely.
As long as they execute something like that well, I'm on board, right? Yeah. If they botch it, if they ruin it, if they mess it up, then I'll poo all over it. But if they rock it, cool, good for them.
Yeah. So people in chat are asking, do you think he will ever reveal his face?
Oh, I'm sure they will. They have to at some point.
I think it'll have to be at a point where it really makes sense, where it's important.
Yeah, they're gonna do something special with it. Again, I think it would be really nice to have. Mm-hmm. We hit one of those culmination points where he just reaches utter exhaustion. And granted, I feel like we've gotten almost to one of those points already with 2 episodes in. Mm-hmm. But this whole now it's time to retire for the day. Set the helmet where it goes, set the armor where it goes, mm-hmm. get in the refresher. Take a shower. And just watch the weight of what he carries with him every day. Yeah. Just unloaded for a moment while he can have a moment to himself. I think if they shoot that right, it's going to be awesome.
I think something like that would be good closer to the end of the season too, because I will admit I feel like shows will do something like that. Like once the helmet finally comes off, then there's little then they have less incentive to keep showing him with the helmet on. Like, oh, you've already seen his face. We might as well show you his face every day now. You know,
Kylo Ren.
Yes, exactly.
The Kylo Ren thing. Kylo Ren.
He put it back on like one more time. That was it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because he's such I love Adam Driver. He's an amazing actor, an amazing person, but he's a funny looking dude.
Yeah.
And you know, he's got funny ears. I had watched him in Girls previously.
Yeah, I had seen. So
I knew. Yeah. I knew who he was, and I was just like, wow, that's Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
Like good for him because he is a great actor.
He's actually a fantastic actor. Do we think IG-11 is going to come back? Well, we'll get to. I want to postpone that question. It's a good question because we're going sequentially, so we're going to get to the IG.
Oh, we got a fight going on in the back here.
Oh, I see that.
Yeah.
Or I hear that. I don't see it. But all right. So, progressing. We've got Werner Herzog. Awesome. Yeah. This was the scene they showed at Star Wars Celebration.
Really?
And okay. Yes, it was edited differently. So this whole scene with Werner Herzog, where he's having the discussion with the Mandalorian, it was a lot longer. I think it was like a 20-minute scene that they clipped down to about 10 minutes. There were a lot more pauses in between things. Like every sentence had a lot more gravity. And it might have stretched the episode out a little bit too long, which is interesting, though, because I thought maybe the episode was a little short. You know, that's one of the things they're going with shorter episodes here. But no, his character is amazing. I loved everything about this kind of discussion. This was like the beginning of his quest, I felt.
Yep. And the way they introduced him and just everything from the details on the stormtroopers looking like they have been, you know, they've been through hell.
Yeah.
And they are, you know, they're on edge. They look like garbage. They look, in my opinion, they almost look like how a stormtrooper should look, right? The ones on the ship are pretty because they haven't seen combat and they've been polished up.
And your ones in Tatooine kind of landed in episode 4, like they just came down from the ship, so they were a little cleaner, you know, got dirty real quick. But these guys have been here for 5 years at least, I would guess.
Yep, and Imperial standards of cleanliness have not been enforced, and they just, even the way they carry themselves, right? They're not pumped up like I'm the baddest man on the planet. They're hunched over like I really don't want to fight this guy today. Really don't want to fight.
Yes, and then we almost had a fight, you know, and this was a great scene from the. I'm glad they left this in too. Is like, you know, we have you 4-1. He's like, I like those odds. This was in so many ways a cool looking guy saying and doing cool things, and that's awesome. And that's actually one of the criticisms some other people have given it, which is strange because I'm like, how is that in any way a bad thing? I mean, for your first episode, you had to hook people with the cool stuff, and I feel like this was a great scene where they did a lot of that. And mentioned,
I like that right after this scene, we discover that he is not wearing 100% Beskar.
I think it's just his helmet at this point,
and I think the chest plate.
Oh, okay, could be
because they scrape the knife across it, and nothing happens.
Oh, I thought it left a line. I may have to go watch that again or maybe he scraped it right along where there was a scratch or something like that.
You might be right. I don't know, but I thought that I didn't see anything. And so
I actually don't. Based on after watching episode 2, and I don't want to get too much into 2 just yet. I think the chest plate is not Beskar because this
or that's just how tough. That's just how tough that thing was.
Yeah, that's possible.
It could be A or B. I don't know. Yeah. I'd love to see what happens.
Well, also it looks kind of red, so I'm gonna. Granted, you can paint. You can. We know that you can paint Beskar, but I think it's regular. But you know, we'll see. So very, very cool stuff. After this meeting, and I love that he introduces Beskar. Now, I don't know as much Mandalorian history as you do, but I knew a little bit about Beskar because of the Star Wars RPG. And we had a Mandalorian character that was trying to basically go through this exact arc like earlier this year. And so it was, for me, I was like, oh, I know what that is. So I was really excited about it. But then we get the scene where he goes into all of the other, we see that there's more Mandalorians, and we get the blacksmith scene.
The
what did you think of
blacksmith
that?
scene was bomb, and so I actually have a note here.
Okay.
And I have to wonder, especially because of the horns,
Okay.
which could be that's kind of a small homage to Darth Maul, right?
Okay.
Character I believe you're familiar with.
I'm a little bit familiar with Darth Maul. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and then so it has the horns right in the back there, and so again, like this is a borderline ritual of religion here that's happening, right?
I think
He doesn't
so.
say anything; he just sits very patiently.
Everything about this scene, I definitely get that. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And I love the way that they shot it and they executed it. And the notes here that I have. So again, his armor is definitely incomplete, and I think in what we were just talking about, his Mandalorian diamond in the middle is not Boba and Jango's Mandalorian diamond in the middle that we're used to, and the fact that it's one breastplate as opposed to little pieces. Does make me think that it could be a sign of rank. Either he hasn't earned the diamond in the middle, or that is simply a placeholder, and he doesn't even have the Beskar there. So I could actually see your argument that
she says, "Have you revealed your signet yet?" And I'm like, I don't know exactly what that means, and I imagine that's something we will find out.
I don't know what that means either. And I know a lot of Mandalorian lore. There might be somebody out there that knows what it actually means and what that's a reference to.
Yeah, let us know in the comments if you guys in the chat, if you have any theories on what his signet is going to be.
Yeah. Because I'm definitely interested in that. And again, I don't need to know that in episode 1, right? There's how many episodes? So I'm very excited to see.
Yeah,
developing that lore, developing that, and let's add to it, right? It doesn't need to be something that was in a book from 15, 20 years ago.
Right.
It can be something that we develop and grow this lore out into. So I'm into it.
Right. So somebody is asking in chat, and I was going to talk about this as well, about Boba Fett in this scene. I don't know if you had heard, but like at about the 18-minute mark, as he's walking in before the Mandalorian gets to the armorer. There's a character in the background whose posture is similar to how Boba Fett stood in Jabba's palace, and it's dark, but from what you can see of the colors of his armor, it's very similar to Boba Fett's armor colors. And so some people are suggesting that hey, that was Boba Fett. I've seen this all over. I don't think it is. I think it was much too dark, and I think if they were going to just
what if it's Jodo Cast?
Oh, that was close. Yeah, he's very, very similar. I think it was just put in there to get you talking about it. I think they chose that character and the pose and the colors very deliberately because I know. If you've read the Aftermath books, Boba Fett's armor.
Cassian says Boba Fett's sigil was the 7 with the feather.
Oh, okay. So. You know what? I have to go look at my Black Series action figure now and look at it really close because I think I remember something like that on there. Is your clan?
It's definitely one of his 2 marks because he has fun fact, he has a different mythosaur skull on his pauldron in every movie.
Is that a fact?
It's a different one in each movie. But even in 4 when they added him in, I think it's a different logo. But yeah, that might be they're talking about that. So
it could be, and I think it's I think this character that they've added here is just a nod to it. I think it's them kind of saying, hey, we may add him at some point. We know that for a lot of people, they're going to see this show and they're going to think, hey, what does this show have to do with Boba Fett if they're not familiar? So that's something I think they're going to have to address at some point.
I'd like to see if they address the statement that Jango and Boba aren't Mandalorians because it is a Dave Filoni production, and Dave Filoni is the one that created that line that they are not Mandalorians.
When was that? Was that in the is that
cartoon
show?
Wars?
Oh yeah.
Yep, cartoon show, and they basically say those are not Mandalorians. And this is still the same Dave Filoni that created the pacifist Mandalorian. And so here we go. Let's bring that out and develop that story arc as well. and explain it better. Why are they not Mandalorian?
That's a great idea. So
give me why.
I'm going to lean into something. I'm going to predict something for the future right now. And this is, I've talked about this a couple of times, but I don't remember when or where. So I imagine at it doesn't have to be in season 1, but it could be at like maybe the end of season 1. Let's say the main threat is accomplished, and then you've still got like 20 minutes of time left in the episode. And he's like, all right, well, I'm done with that huge task I had to do. Season's complete. And he goes, and he's like, all right, I got one more mark. All right. And he gets a puck and he's walking into a bar, very similar to what we had at the first episode. And he's getting ready to, grab somebody. And then all of a sudden you've got, Tamira Morrison sitting at the bar, turns around and he's like, that's my claim, or something like that. Yeah. Basically disputes the bounty that he's also going after him. And obviously he'll be an older Tamira Morrison. His age would be perfect. He's at the perfect age to play him. But here's the thing. That's where the show ends. Him looking over, he's like, he's mine. It fade to black right there. Now you've got the entire off season. Everybody's saying, was that Boba Fett? Or because some people will be like, no, he could have been a clone. That could have been like a clone that maybe they slowed down the aging because, clones were supposed to age a lot faster. But, hey, Star Wars being what it is, maybe the Force or maybe, somebody on Camino says, hey, it's just drink this. It'll slow your aging back down to normal, whatever.
But wasn't Boba was unmodified, though?
He was an unmodified clone. But if it was a regular clone, if it was like Cody or something like that, he could have just drank a slow it down potion. Right. So like there's a whole lot of stuff because we know Rex was still alive at the Battle of Endor. He was older, apparently he was the beard guy, but they're not saying absolutely he was that guy. They've just said he was at the Battle of Endor.
Totally was.
Yeah. And this is only 5 years after that. So you could totally justify a clone, being there. But then, then the next season comes back. Then we get the resolution. Turns out he is Boba Fett and, they end up fighting, but then they work it out or whatever. And then maybe he ends up maybe they unite against like somebody who kind of set them up against each other. Gives you an opportunity to explore Boba Fett's story a little bit with what you said, him like earning his way back into being a Mandalorian again or something like that. If such a path exists. And what I'd like to see is for him not to have his original armor, but for him to have a new set of armor in a very, very similar color scheme. So it's still recognizable, but it's got a fresh take on it because his old armor, probably got damaged by the Sarlacc acids in its belly. And according to the books, it's some sheriff on Tatooine has it now. So.
Right. Yeah. So I think it'd be great to, I think it'd be great to reintroduce it. And again, just let's develop a new story arc and see where does it go from here. Because realistically, we're not going to see that in the movies.
Yeah.
But this is a great opportunity to have a canon answer finally.
I agree. And I wouldn't want it too early because you want this character to sell the show on his own merits. I want this show to be about Pedro Pascal's The Mandalorian and not about Boba Fett and Pedro's is now all of a sudden a supporting actor. No, so that's why I think you wait till like the end of season 2 before you introduce Boba Fett.
I agree. We need full focus on what we've got going on now before we distract and have what I would call the Skywalker syndrome, where you can't develop or be interested in a new character when there's a Skywalker on screen.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of role-playing games that you get into suffer from that when people want to bring in characters from the movies. And then it's all about those characters. It's not about your characters that you're running in the game.
Yeah, it's very dangerous to do that. And I think if you're going to do that, you have to be willing to make your universe an alternate universe. I'm like, yeah, you just killed Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm like, wait, what? He's dead? Yeah, he's dead.
Yep.
See what happens.
No, I'm all about it. And honestly, whenever I run games, I try to keep people in the wake of or far away from people. So definitely a fan. And that forge right there that you've got on screen.
Oh yeah.
One of my notes here, and I even mentioned it to my Star Wars costuming buddies, is I really want to see that at a convention for like a 501st booth as a prop.
Oh yes.
Like
Oh, absolutely. And you could there's so many ways you could get that effect. You could have a little fan with the streamers or something like that.
Yep.
You could do it way better than that too.
I've got guys in my social circles that can make that happen, and I
Yeah.
set it in a
With
social
resin.
circle that could make that happen. So
Yeah.
I'm curious what those guys get up to and what they end up making.
No, that's a great idea. That would be really fun.
It's super iconic. Like everything about that design looks amazing.
And I was really blown away with how much ritual and everything about that scene I loved, and I loved that
Yep.
the armorer was female too. The funny thing is, my wife called it as soon as she saw
Yeah.
her. She's like, "Oh, it's a girl." I'm like,
Yep.
How do you know that? And
Yep.
then as soon as she spoke, I'm like, "Well, aren't you a psychic?"
It has the night owl design though from Clone Wars. What was it? It's like Sabine's helmet and then Bo-Katan. They have very similar owl style T visors, which as a guy who loves owls, like I don't even care. Like I would wear it myself.
Sure.
So I'd be all about it.
That's one of the thing about the armor. It's so awesome. It's hard to pick favorites. All right, so moving forward, he gets the pauldron. We learned that he was a foundling, and foundlings are cool. Apparently, basically,
and apparently
they take him in.
Beskar is going to sponsor some foundlings.
Yeah, it was really like I wonder if they give them like a little sigil or a crest or something like that,
or maybe your first plate.
Yeah,
right.
But
Maybe.
he said the excess would sponsor multiple. So I'm like, wait, how are they gonna?
Right.
Maybe they only get enough. Maybe they earn 1 ounce at a time.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, pretty cool though. I like it.
Yeah. Again, one of those expanding the lore. I want to know what that means.
Yeah. And you don't even have to explain it anytime soon. You can totally just set things up and that don't get explained for like 2 years. As long as you don't contradict them. And that's the problem. So he goes to this other planet, and I had initially thought that this planet was Tatooine. And it is not. It has another name, which I did not write down, but it's a planet I've never heard of before. And we meet.
Did they say what the planet was? I didn't even catch. I was so.
They didn't
wrapped
say
up
in the
everything else.
show, but there was another publication that said, "Oh, that planet wasn't Tatooine. It was actually like Jolnar." It's not Jolnar. That's Twilight Imperium. But
Jolnar is a great place for technology and lore, and
yeah, exactly.
we can do a whole other episode on Twilight Imperium. Let me know.
All right, we'll do.
Best game ever.
It's one of my favorites. I absolutely love it. But yeah, basically, it is a different planet, and we meet Nick Nolte's character. Now, I don't think they said his name outright either, because I don't even know what his character's name is. But he's the I have spoken character, right? But I really liked him. He's kind of got a little bit of that like Yoda's diction a little bit. He kind of sounds a little. I will help you. Freaking love it.
Yeah, and I like the idea of a Pathfinder here, and even like going to the role playing game, right? Like, what good is an explorer? What good is a Pathfinder character? Like, this guy shows you, right? Like, he's the guy showing the bounty hunter how to find his target.
And his motivations were there too. Like he's got 2 real motivations too, because he explains that like since these folks have been here, it's been chaos. So if you can end the chaos, I'll help you. And on top of that, he's got this whole like this mystery of wonder. It's like, I've never seen a Mandalorian before. I want to see what you can do.
Yep. And I have a note for the end of the next episode about this guy too. So we'll wait on that.
Okay.
One. But,
yeah.
I definitely have a note about like his motivations and his insight as well. So, this guy
has a sage kind of aspect to him too, and then he teaches. Yeah. He teaches our Mandalorian how to ride blurgs
and how to repair his ship. Spoiler alert!
Yeah,
this guy knows things. He is super smart.
He does know things.
Where has he been? What has he done? And then
it's Kuiil. His name is from the chat. It's Chaos Assassin. It's his name is Kuiil. Kuiil. Yeah, I think they did say it. Now that you say that,
And they're like your people ride mythosaurs, right? So what kind of a Mandalorian are you if you can't ride this? Like, dude, like if that's not motivating, like
I dare you. If you're a real Mandalorian, you can do it, right?
Yeah.
And it also seemed like it was
we have 2 episodes and we have 2 montages with this guy, right? Like even Rocky had a montage. Like
speaking of Rocky,
yeah,
thank you, because I would have forgotten about this. So
Uh-huh.
much of this episode, and both episodes, but so much of this episode specifically spoke to me as a Rocky movie.
Yeah.
Not first off, you got Carl Weathers, who was
Yep.
Apollo Creed, right? And for two, you've got a lot of what you're talking about, that Rocky feel. But the music.
Yep.
Can we just talk about the music for a second?
Yeah.
The
They
music is
scored it great.
amazing, and it's not.
Makes you feel like you beat.
Yeah, it to me it was like it was directly inspired from like a Rocky kind of tempo and rhythm. I felt like Rocky music to me.
Yeah. And then, of course, we can thank him for the #1 catchphrase of the month.
Yeah.
And so I've been using "I will make it legal," right, for all my judging, right?
Yes. Yes.
But I think I have a new
I
catchphrase
have
for judge
spoken.
questions.
Yes. It was
Right?
great. They did so good with that. They, like when your show can create instant memes and instant
Yeah,
pop
damn.
culture reference like that. Oh,
And
forget about it.
there's two, because there's a new one in episode 2 that we'll get to
Mm-hmm.
that weapons are my religion, and I've already seen memes on that one too. Like,
Yes. Yes.
and I'm just like,
incredible. Absolutely.
so this show is doing things, man.
Yeah,
Like,
I think it's doing a lot of really good things. But I loved this. I had originally thought from the trailer that they were writing dewbacks because blurgs and dewbacks obviously have some similarities.
sure,
But
they got
blurgs,
little,
but blurgs come on the proper size base.
yeah, right, yeah,
Legion players will get that reference. Okay.
yep.
All right. So then we get to like the closing scene where he gets to this encampment to go get the bounty. Now he sees an IG-11 down there walking up, and he's got he's I don't want to say racist. He's got his bias against droids, right? It's
Sure,
kind of
yep.
and in a way it's kind of exploring. It's giving you a little more exposition into this guy, you know.
And droids, generally speaking, do have that sub inferior status in Star Wars,
Yeah.
right? Like R2D2 and C3PO are the kind of anomalies because they don't get their memories wiped, or well, R2 doesn't get his memory wiped so
Right.
much, and so you have this immortal being who can live forever, who's really only kept in check by memory wipes, and so they're usually relegated to restraining bolts and things like that. And so to have a droid out there, bounty hunter, that's a problem. And again, back to them doing little details. Those are the exact rifles that the original Kenner model had for the IG droid.
Yes.
So that's why you might be right in thinking that was IG-88, because it's very, very similar equipment there.
It was definitely meant to look like him, and then the whole initiate self. I hear from chat nerf herders, the initiate self destruct is another huge meme. I'm like, absolutely, like that's like I rolled all blanks. Hold on, I'll just initiate self destruct.
Yeah,
No, we can finish
this.
the game.
We got this.
Yeah.
Great character. Honestly, I would like to see him rebuilt and reprogrammed to be an ally.
I don't think
because
he's dead.
I think a plucky droid IG companion there would be great. I also think he'd be a great antagonist. Either way.
I think. Well, they seemed to have like they didn't have a whole lot of time together, but you seemed like he was, initially not working with him. But then kind of working with him, and they put out toys for IG-11, so that's why I think it's going to be IG-11. I think he is like basically, going to come back, and he's like, all right, well, backup protocol picked in, or something like that. Or it could be like IG-11B, IG-11C, just like IG-88, because chat's reminding us that there were multiple IG-88s as well.
Right. And now that we've gotten to the IG, there's actually a note that I had here. The DNA trackers, right? We're assuming it's DNA, right? The chain codes.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So,
right, yes. For the mark that they're looking to find.
Yeah, something that I've never seen before. I think that's new, but I think it's a great development, and it gives us a way of, like, in a galaxy full of people, how do you actually find people, right? Beyond just word of mouth, beyond whatever. This idea that your DNA is out there and could be tracked. Because when he says last 4 digits, we can tell you it's 50 years old. I think that's where we came to the conclusion that it is based on DNA.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I thought for sure they were talking about Boba Fett at this point.
Yeah.
I was like the age would have been right. I thought for
Yeah.
sure it was Boba Fett.
But so in their first meeting here, IG is claiming this bounty, even though he doesn't have the guy in hand, right? And so he's like, according to the code, you can't interfere, blah blah blah. And he's like, well, you don't have the bounty, so like, no, I'm still going to be here. And he's like, oh, you got a point. And so what I think is interesting is that in the very beginning of the next episode, we see him ambushed by people with a tracker code as well. And so we have now 3 different people on the same hunt. Mm-hmm. And so, this one came from the Imperial, right? We know that. But I'm starting to think that someone else is looking for them too. Because IG had instructions to kill. IG did not have instructions to bring him back alive.
Yes. So basically he was sent from the guild, and IG may have been sent from somebody not guild affiliated.
Yeah, so from who? And then the Trandoshans, were they sent by the same person as IG, or were they sent by someone else? But they all have these DNA trackers for this creature.
And I'm guessing at this point that those trackers are a fairly common. It's like the equivalent of a USB stick. Like you can.
Yeah. So once you've got that data, you could duplicate it. Which again, I was under the assumption at the beginning of the episode that there was only one, but now we see that there's actually ways to get multiple. So they're teaching us a lot without telling us anything if you start really reading into the details.
That's an interesting observation. I didn't really pick that up here because they jump into the action so quick you can forget, like, hey, how did you get here? I mean, we may find out that Greef Karga is like double crossing our hero.
He could be double crossing, yeah. So they show him in very stoic poses in a lot of the ads and stuff, but he could just be he could just be whatever.
It won't surprise me if he ends up losing a hand. They do that in Star Wars a lot. I think Mandalorian might slice off Greef Karga's hand because, first off, it's a Star Wars thing. Second off, he was Combat Carl in Toy Story. And in the Toy Story holiday special, Combat Carl spends the whole episode looking for his missing hand because it's a toy. And he was
Disney.
And he was Chubbs in Happy Gilmore. And again, Alligator got his hand. So it's a thing. That's my prediction. Greef Karga's losing a hand.
That'd be great. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it.
Especially if it gets eaten by like a dewback or something like that, kind of like the alligator that kind of thing.
Yeah, something just real dumb and silly.
So how about this maneuver where the Mandalorian jumps on the E-web and spins it around, and it's circling around, just completely wiping everybody out.
Honestly, I hated it. That was probably one of my least favorite things about the episode.
Really? I thought it was pretty cool. But why didn't you like it? Was it like too OP?
So the issue I have is, granted, we established that he's really good, right? But even that, you can tell that he's struggling with this wobbly thing, right? And so to execute a Hail Mary play like that and hit every target, right? Like I don't think a lot of even good Battlefield players could do something like, or Battlefront players could do something like that on a move.
It was pretty OP. I'll admit that.
It was pretty OP. And even at the end there, like, he's struggling to to get it on the right height. So I don't question that he got the circular movement down, but to get the up, down, vertical with all those different elevations of targets, that part I didn't like. And I'm a pretty big marksman and shooter. I have a number of shooting awards in my repertoire, like real life, as a real life marksman. So I didn't particularly like that part.
I can understand that. I would justify it by saying, with IG-11's sacrifice, for one, had them focus on him. And then once they brought him down, a lot of those guys who were taking cover probably said, all right, it's done, because he was the one that started the whole thing. So a lot of those guys probably didn't even know the Mandalorian was there. A lot of those guys were probably just thinking, hey, all right, we took him down, stand up, and then he, that happened.
So that brings me to kind of the end of the episode almost. And that is, how much body count do you think we had in this episode?
That's a good. It's just this scene alone has me kind of confounded. I would guess probably like 40.
40.
Yeah.
Pretty good guess. So again, there's some off-camera work, and there's some stuff there. Prior to this point, I think there's 3 to 5. Unfortunately, I lost my notes and I had to recreate them from memory. There's about 3 to 5 bodies prior to this. After this scene, the body count for the episode, including the IG, is about 33.
Oh, okay.
And so this is a storytelling thing that I kind of wanted to hop on too, because life matters in real life, right?
Right.
But in storytelling, in fantasy, in movies and such, body counts seem to kind of just be used for glorifying our heroes and stuff. And so why are these guys fighting to the last man, right? Like, what is their motivation to stick around after you get that many suppression and you decide you need to panic off the board? Like, why are you still here fighting to the last man? You've got no commander. You've got no motivation. And I threw this by some of my buddies, and they said, maybe they had a payday there. Maybe they were more afraid of who would come after them if they ran.
Right. No, there was definitely a tipping point in this battle too, where you can think like, all right, why are even more of them coming out? Like, what is it worth fighting for at this point?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So I feel like there are motivations, so it wasn't completely unwarranted, but that is a really high body count for just protecting one little scrap of land, that apparently they haven't been on for very long. Obviously, the target is probably one of the motivations for them to stay, for them to either protect or collect their own payday.
Right.
But why are they there? What's their motivation? And why are 33 lives lost? Or I think it was closer to 28 in this scene.
Right, it was a lot. Now, some of them may have run too. We don't really know all of that, but the point is, what the show was trying to tell you is that a lot of people were fighting to their last breath to protect the asset, which we come to learn was effectively a 50-year-old newborn of a race of Yoda's species.
Yeah, of one of the most mysterious races in the galaxy.
Yeah, we don't even know what it's called as super.
Sorry.
Fans, right?
Yeah, I think honestly, correct me if I'm wrong, it's probably the most mysterious race in Star Wars lore that has been one of the most protected secrets in all of Star Wars.
So I had to shout something to the wife, but yes, so. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So I like Bladefire's comment here too. We're assuming that those guys are bad guys.
Oh yeah. No, absolutely. There's so much we don't know, and I certainly assumed they were all bad guys before they showed this. When I was certain the bounty was for Boba Fett. I was just so certain. I was like, it's gonna be Boba Fett. Before this episode launched, people were saying there's gonna be a major Star Wars spoiler in the first episode. I'm like, you can't call it a spoiler if it's in the episode. It's called a reveal, not a spoiler, right? But I'm like, it's the only thing. 50 years old, it makes sense. It makes sense that they would want to deal with Boba Fett in this show and just at least answer those questions. Nope. This one caught me completely. What?
Yep. Yeah, I loved it, and it was so adorable. And
oh my goodness!
And so I think the cutest thing about this, and back to the body count thing. Just one final note.
Yeah, because this works with that. Yeah,
I watch a lot of professional wrestling, and one of the most important things is if you want to have this new hero, if you want to have this new character, you need to sell them as this BA guy who can handle everybody, right? And nobody can take this guy down. Well, 4-1, I like those odds. What about 28-1 or 28-2? So right. I think we establish in the first episode that he is that just awesome.
Yeah.
And then episode 2, which we're going to get to here in just a minute. By the way, we are at right about an hour.
We are. We've certainly got. Well, I think we can. Hey, you guys can hang with us for as long as you want, and we're going to move on to episode 2 here shortly. So
I've got time, but I just wanted to let you know.
I'm in no hurry.
I just looked at the clock. So I think what's great about this is episode 1 establishes, yes, he's awesome. Episode 2 is, but he can fail.
Yeah.
Right. And he can have struggle.
He fails a little bit in episode 1 too, with trying to ride the blurg. That was difficult for him, and he was ready to give up. So he's not a I don't like using the term Mary Sue, because I think people
Right.
throw that around a little bit too much. But we see him.
Right.
I mean, he's already an established character. He's already got his
Yep.
ship. He's got a weapons locker. He's already got armor. He's already an established character. So we don't really need too much exposition on that. But we're also
They do a
shown
good
that this guy
job.
can fail.
Yep, and I love that. And for a character, man, sometimes failures are my favorite thing about a character. So
Absolutely.
I really enjoyed it.
One of my
That
favorite
actually,
book series is the Dresden Files, and that guy
yep,
fails so much. It's
yeah,
one of the things I love. But yeah, so we get this baby Yoda, and it's amazing. And then we get the bullet in the head of IG-11, who said the asset must be killed. So that tells us right
yep,
away that he's not coming from the same person.
yeah. Two different motivations there.
Yeah,
And also, final note on that one: how did IG-88 get there?
IG-11.
Or yeah, how did 11 get there? Because you had to ride a blurb to get there. That was the whole plot of him learning to ride a blurb.
Oh, well, he might have just dropped out of orbit. Like he might have had a. Yeah, you don't really see. I think that was just the Ugnaught Zuiel or oil Queel, just
Yeah, yeah.
saying from here to there you have to.
Sure.
There's. I think we have to kind of think of some out of universe stuff. It was probably just an excuse to get the training montage in the episode.
Oh, absolutely.
But
It's
yeah,
just funny notes, right? Continuity. Again, nitpicking for the sake of nitpicking. Like,
No, absolutely.
just
I think because he's a droid, he could probably have been dropped in without suffering traumatic injury. Whereas
yeah, absolutely.
a human.
Also, he probably was less concerned about getting intercept fire. So
Yeah, he's that's exactly what it is. They probably had surface to air AA guns and stuff. So yeah, but yeah, but I love the way that this ends too, with him kind of sticking the finger out and like you see the baby Yoda finger kind of go up in that way, and and then they show you like the little art montages after the episode too. Like
those are beautiful.
I mean, the production quality alone, even if you didn't like the story, the production quality is off the charts. But then the story is there too, and so first episode, I was absolutely blown away. It wasn't like a perfect 10, but it was like easily like a 9.7 for me, like
Yep.
overall. And a lot of that was just some of the nitpicks, and but I completely surprised about the baby Yoda.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Just, knocked it out of the park, and it just left you going, I need another episode immediately.
Yes. So at this point, we are going to start talking about episode 2. So if you guys wanted to branch out at this point, this would be a good time. But here is your warning, and now we're going to start talking about episode 2. Now, by the way, Friday is the new day that all of the new episodes are going to be launching. So future episodes of this show will happen Sunday. Give everybody time to watch, and then you can come hang out and talk about the episode with us. So that's So we're going to start episode 2, and kind of picks up a few minutes after episode 1 left off, and he's just walking.
We get a new opener.
Did we have a new opening?
I don't remember the opener having the helmets at the beginning.
Oh no, the first one had the helmets.
Did it?
Yeah, I remember it having. Did I say
have crummy
episode?
notes then.
I do mean chapter 2. Yes.
Yep, chapter 2.
Yeah, and I love that again that they're just calling him chapter 2, because if they would have called this one now. Like if they would have called this one like filler episode or whatever, then or the death of the Mandalorian, then you would have I hate seeing something like that. If they would have called this one Utini, then that would have given the episode away. Even granted, that would have been a great name for the episode.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
Well,
yeah, they did call it the child,
but it's not called that on the when you're looking at like Disney Plus. It says chapter 2. It doesn't say the child until you start the episode, and that's fine, because you already know. That's telling you something you learned at the end of last episode. So it wasn't really a spoiler for this episode.
Yep.
And
they did a good job of it.
Overall, I know I've heard a lot of people saying good things about this episode. I actually liked this episode a little bit less. A little bit less, because I thought this was a filler episode.
Okay.
And granted, that's okay. Like
it was kind of a silly fetch quest, let's be real.
Right.
Like it didn't exactly advance the plot, but it did
just
provide
a little bit.
development. Yeah, it provided character development though, which I think is still super valuable.
And you also got to see the Mandalorian fail.
Yep.
And you got to see a little bit of plot development because it turns out this child is not just like is a bounty. He's just going to turn in right away.
Yep.
Blown away that like we got more footage of this. I thought like at the end of the last episode, I was thinking, well, this one will just be like him on his ship turning in the thing, and then going back to Werner Herzog and those Imperials and be like, what's next? Give me my Beskar, you know?
Yep.
And
yeah, I was waiting to get to that point where we're gonna have that turning point where he doesn't turn it in. Because let's be real,
yeah,
he's not gonna turn it in.
That's
like,
certainly what it seems at this point. It certainly seems like I don't know, and that's the beauty is not knowing right now.
This is my favorite kind of a, like, as a storyteller, you have clear motivation. He wants that Beskar. That Beskar is for the good of his clan.
Oh
right?
My gosh, yes. And you're exactly right, because he's demonstrated that he's willing to donate some as well, because I was a foundling once, so you see why he wants to donate too.
And so he has his culture, his people, his religion. Tell me that's not a light side point to get the Beskar, right?
I've heard some people suggest that he might be force sensitive, the way he kind of approached the Blurg, you know, and got him to calm down. I think it's possible. I think I think with the Baby Yoda here, which we didn't, and no, we keep saying Baby Yoda. I want to talk about this baby a little bit because he's prominent in this second episode. And he's super, super cute. Like crazy cute, like in this episode even more so with a little, like, because we watch with subtitles, so it'll say baby cooing, and you hear him go, and you're like, oh my gosh, are you kidding? But yeah, it's you know, and so they suggest in chat that it might just be a Mandalorian thing with the calming of the beasts. Absolutely,
it could be.
It might be, but I think they're leaving the door open in case they want to work on it being that way. Again, he was a child from the Clone Wars, so you know. It's certainly possible. And we know that there have been, or at least one Mandalorian Jedi. And it would not surprise me if at some point in this show's hopefully lengthy lifespan, we get some Darksaber discussion. You know, I'd
be super okay though if they didn't do anything with a lightsaber. To be honest, like that's some of my favorite stuff with Solo. Right? Is they tell us this great story. And there's no lightsabers.
Oh, really, no, there was. It was deliberate and in your face.
Well, besides the one, right?
Yeah.
But that was the conclusion. And so the rest of the movie, it's not about lightsabers, it's not about Jedi, right?
Right.
So it's about these other people in this universe who are getting by. And this guy just scraping by to get armor, to get money, to get resources. He's like, I can't even take that. It won't pay for the fuel. Right?
No, I get that. I think at some point, though, it's going to deal with like Werner Herzog's discussion about it being the downfall of Mandalore, and like, when you're, you know, like if he eventually wants to kind of work on, once he gets his armor, like maybe season 2, season 3. Well, what's next for him? Well, maybe how about the restoration of his people? Maybe to really earn, because we seem to get this idea that maybe, you know, maybe he's not a full Mandalorian yet. Maybe that's what the signet means. Maybe he hasn't proven himself yet. And if he's an outsider that has been adopted into this culture like a foundling, then maybe what's something epic that he could do to truly prove himself to a culture? And that might be Darksaber related. It may deal with restoring the Mandalorian people. Like it wouldn't be like as bad as they did in Solo, where they're just like, hey, hold on a second, let me turn this on. You know, it would actually be plot relevant, especially if Yoda's using the Force in this, or you know, we're calling it Yoda, but you know,
and what kind of damage is he going to do to his reputation with the Mandalorians if he doesn't secure that Beskar and doesn't turn in the baby?
That he might, because he seems like he's already earned himself some cool points. So he's on like he's like plus, he just got like +3 rep, you know,
right?
And so he's like, I can kind of walk in here, nobody, And now if he doesn't, he's gonna walk back into that place, and like the people are gonna be like with their arms crossed, like, you don't come around here, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe they start hunting him, and he has to earn his way back somehow.
Oh my goodness, could you imagine? Or maybe he gets the Beskar and then they take it from him, or there's. See, we should just, you know, we should just be working at like Lucasfilm Story Group, like just jotting down ideas, like Pablo Hidalgo and Matt Martin are like in watching live stream. They're like, yeah, this is a good idea. This is how, you know.
Yep.
That's
so
what,
there's the beauty is I think I look at it from a storytelling perspective. There's so many different paths. There's so much conflict already built in 2 episodes, and I'm hooked. I want to know what he does as a character. I want to know where he goes, and see what happens. You know.
Yeah. So you talked about this earlier in the last episode. So when we talked about there's a separate instance of another group with DNA trackers. This time, Trandoshans, and they are awesome. I love seeing, I loved this battle. It was great. It was, and he saw it coming too. So we can see, his instincts, and he definitely could tell that they were ambushing him. And there was 3 of them. I didn't realize it was going to be 3 because this was kind of hinted.
Was it 3? I got to update my body count tracker.
Yeah, there was 3 of them. And he, in the preview, I think they only showed 2. So that was surprising to me. And he, I think they may have been the same ones from that first cantina. I think that because they showed them kind of watching him with spying eyes deliberately, which kind of makes you think maybe Grief Karga, was double dealing.
Could be, yeah.
But more likely, maybe they put a tracker on his ship or something like that. That's certainly something going on. And the whole time you've got little baby Yoda watching, all concerned, and it's amazing. But I really liked this battle, and I like that they're showing you more of races that you already know. One of the things that Star Wars does sometimes, and it annoys me, is every opportunity to showcase an alien, it's like, well, hold on, I'm the director. I need to create my own aliens and leave my mark on the Star Wars universe. You know what? You can do so much more. If we've only seen one Trandoshan on screen outside of animation, you have so much you can do, and and so that's one of the things that he's that he's done in this show and in this scene specifically, but in the show as a whole too.
And they're known to be generally bad guys, they're known to be generally bounty hunter or slavers or whatever. So for them to come in and be an antagonist for a fight, and then also they're supposed to be super strong. So here he is fighting something that
3 of them,
3 of them, and again, so I really, again, it establishes him as an awesome fighter.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I love, using that pronged rifle too is just great. So,
another zap.
Yeah, absolutely. Which kind of leads into one of my favorite scenes of this episode was he's patching himself up. And then you get little baby Yoda watching him and wanting to go heal him, which is
I wanted him to do it too the whole time.
We all knew it. This is when we were like, wait a second, can he use the Force? And then the whole time my wife's like, I don't want a puppy, I want a baby Yoda. I want a baby Yoda. And this is when he holds out that arm. It's amazing.
He's thinking wanting to do it.
I'm thinking to myself, why did they release this show in November? Without this? I mean, obviously this is a spoilery thing, so they couldn't have had toys for this out. But oh my gosh, this would be the #1 Christmas seller worldwide.
Yeah.
Maybe there's still time. Maybe they're looking at a December 1st, Baby Yoda kind of thing or something. I don't know.
I've seen several married couples with children say that they want a Baby Yoda, and I'm just like, that's a real awkward conversation to have with your wife. One way or the other, that's got to be weird. So, makes me giggle a little bit.
It is pretty funny. No, he was so cute, and the CGI is really, really good on him too. It's beautiful.
I feel like it's good enough that it doesn't distract you and make you hate it. I feel like a puppet here would be great, but I feel like even the CGI looks it's solid.
It's really good. I agree. I'm blown away, and I didn't expect to be have cuteness overload in this show. But all right. So they get back to the catastrophe. Here comes the big problem with this episode is that he sees a sandcrawler that's looting his ship. Jawas are just ransacking everything, and he was ready to take this thing and go back and turn in the bounty, and he can't.
Yep.
So we kind of get the whole answer to, well, a possible explanation for Darth Vader's line in Empire Strikes Back about no disintegrations when he starts loading that rifle up and just starts popping Jawas, which is
and we even saw it a little bit too. Somebody was pointing out he fires it for the first time on that Trandoshan, and nukes the Trandoshan as well, and that's I mean, dude, that is an awesome rifle, and I like that it's a one-shot charge.
Yeah.
So it's, he's got to shoot it, he's got to reload it, he's got to shoot it, reload it. It's not something
he can just like load up in the Gatling cannon, the Z6.
Yep. But it definitely gets the job done.
Imagine this thing in Legion. That's how many red dice is that?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah,
just a few.
Yeah.
Just a few.
Amazing though, like really, really cool sequence here, and but ultimately, it's kind of unsuccessful, which leads to this amazing high-speed chase, or not a high-speed chase, I guess, but this chase scene where
like
he is.
Train scene, right?
It's kind of like a train. It's actually, you were exactly right, and again, it's that Western feel. Yep. And they're all throwing things at him, and he's just determined. He is so determined to get on there and get all of his stuff back.
Yeah, and you think he's gonna. You really believe in him, because you what do you have so far that makes you think he's gonna fail here?
No, yeah, he could take out 4-1 odds, no problem. These guys are little. What can they do to him? Right? Granted, there's a lot more of them, and that really ends up being the problem, I guess, is that he was so confident he could just go get all of his stuff back. He kind of went in with no plan. And they kind of knocked him on his ass, so to speak.
Yep.
But
that hit could not feel good when he landed.
He was out for a while, and the little baby Yoda comes up and is just waiting by him. I think it was set to stay within a certain distance of him. But
so he's got a little hover thing. You can even see it during the chase where the cart is actually flying behind.
Right.
So it has to stay within a certain distance of him. Which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I would need something like that, because you fall asleep and somebody walks away with it. But yes, with it, which leads him back to Kuil at his little farm to basically ask for help, and
funny note.
Yes.
Somebody was mentioning X-wing in the intro. There's a shadow caster on the ground when Boba Fett's landing.
So. When Boba Fett lands,
sorry, Mandalorian words, dogs distracting.
No, it's okay. It's okay, Brenda.
Brenda.
Bredna, right? Yeah. Absolutely. No. So I did see that. I didn't include that in here, but that is it's at least a Lancer class pursuit craft. We don't know if it's the Shadowcaster, but that is the little Easter eggs like that are always really nice too, and I love that they're putting things like that in this show. It's so cool. As a matter of fact, in the episode 9 trailer, there was like that ship that looks just like the Razor Crest. So like, and again, we don't know. I kind of don't like that, because it kind of makes you say, I like that we don't know if it's the same ship or if it's just the ship of that class. But if they were to come out and be like, oh yeah, that's the Razor Crest, I'm like, wait. So you're telling me nothing that happens in this show is going to blow up his ship. His ship is 100% safe, no matter what. Like that.
No, we can't do that.
Yeah, you can't. There have to be stakes. If he's putting his life at risk, there has to be I have to care about it. That was really my only gripe about Solo.
In this show after last time, when it didn't go so well in his last show.
Oh, that's why he's wearing the helmet, to keep his eyes safe.
Yeah, keeping his eyes in place, keeping himself safe.
That's right. Oh, and I'm hearing that there was also a VCX when they were offloading the Carbonite prisoners. I have to watch that one again. I didn't see a VCX, but we'll see. While he's talking to Kuil, we get like one of the cutest little scenes of like Yoda chasing this frog.
Yeah.
And have you heard the theory? I keep saying Yoda. Have you heard the theory that that this is actually a clone of Yoda?
No, I hadn't heard that.
I've heard this. Now, I don't know if there's much truth to this, but yeah, from what I've heard is that, and if it ends up being true, we may see something about this in Clone Wars Season 7, where like somebody steals Yoda's DNA or something like that.
Sure.
But yeah, and of course that would boil down to 50 years.
Yep.
Too.
Yep, that would be about right.
That would be about right. That's where that kind of dated that, and I think that's one of the things that led to that theory. But yeah, in theory, it could be possible. And somebody said that like, and he's going to be in episode 9, and I'm like, that's where I'm not sure. I can't see like at that point he'd be like still a child. What's he going to be doing? What are you going to have a child run around bouncing around with a little lightsaber dagger? I don't know. But yeah. I don't know. Or he could be Yoda and Yaddle's child, which a lot of people seem to think. I mean, that's also possible, but it may not be like that at all. I think they'll say he's a clone of Yoda, though. And of course, you get him eating the frog and spit that out, which was really, really funny.
Yeah. But then he doesn't. He eats it.
He swallows that thing whole. It goes all the way down into his belly, and I'm like, that's how he's going to grow faster, by eating giant frogs and getting bigger.
I wish I still had that metabolism, because I don't anymore at 30. So
yeah, I'm going to be 40 next month, and
oh my gosh,
yeah, I pay for it every time I indulge. But I make sure it's worth it when I do. I'm not eating any frogs though. So concluding with this episode, they go and they sit down, they talk to the Jawas. They are not happy to see the Mandalorian, and he's so short-tempered with him. I think this is another one of his weaknesses, is that he's not really good at communication, and that he tries to kill them in the middle of a meeting.
Yeah, my note here is that all negotiations should include flamethrowers. Everything from politics to car buying. I think we should really just make it a standard that all negotiations involve a flamethrower.
I love the Jawas talking to him too. It's like and talking smack, and they're like, "You sound like a Wookiee."
You sound like a Wookiee, dude. I lost it because it's the only word you can hear them say.
I know, because they said Wookiee, right?
And you're just like, damn.
It was
these guys are savage.
It was great. I see some compliments from the chat about your helmet too. So,
so you did say I could plug anything.
Yes,
this
plug.
And the rest of the kit is for sale. I'm trying to sell it. So
okay.
Yep. So anybody that wants to contact you or me and negotiate that later, I have it's basically a mostly built Mandalorian kit. There's some things that need to be finished on it.
Okay.
But I am trying to sell all this. And there is a T-visor for this. I just never installed it.
If you've got a link, drop it in the chat, and I think links will
absolutely.
work. So, absolutely.
I'll drop an album to my Imager, and then anybody that wants to chat me later on the Facebooks or anything like that, I'd be happy to talk about it.
Absolutely. Okay. And if you're watching this and for some reason don't see the chat, you can email me, and I'll get in touch with Brendon, and we'll square it away. All right. So basically, they want his Beskar. He says no. Then they want the Yoda, and he says no. And then they finally decide they want the egg, which is like the red herring of this episode, right? And so he has to, or the Holy Grail of this particular episode. And it seems like he goes in this cave. It looks like a giant butthole right in the planet, right? It's very funny. Which leads us to another totally case of this dude getting his butt kicked. Like,
dude, he is
totally a tough guy, but he is not invincible.
From right at the beginning, that chest plate is just done.
And that's another reason why I don't think the chest plate was Beskar. I think it was only his helmet. Yeah. And so right now, I think it's just the helmet and the one pauldron. I think that's all he's got. That's Beskar. But yeah, this thing. I was watching this with my kids earlier today because I watch it usually twice. So watch it with the wife, and then I watch it with the kids later on just to make sure there's nothing too. But my oldest son was like hiding. He's like, "There's gonna be a jump scare" when he was walking around in the cave. I'm like, "It's not a jump scare." Yeah. This one, I didn't think this was. It was just an eye opening. It was kind of slow. It wasn't like a boo. It was just like
right.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so this was. This thing was huge. I don't even know what you call this thing, but it spits him right out of the cave. You see some blaster fires.
I don't know that it was a reek. The reek that we see in episode 2 of Star Wars has the bull horns.
Right.
But if it was a female, maybe it wouldn't have the tusk bull horns.
It could very well be. You also
maybe it's a female reek. I don't know.
You see a lot of species from planet to planet that are very similar, like Minox, and in the last Thrawn book there was like these creatures that were like an evolution of Minox. They were like cousins of them. with minor differences. And so you have a lot of cousin species that are very, very similar. And it makes sense because you're going to have minor evolutionary differences from world to world. So,
Hey, Snitter apparently is excited to catch a live show, so
well, I'm glad.
That's apparently a big deal.
I'm glad to have Snitter 10 with us, as well as Snitter 1 through 9.
Yeah, and so I'm with Chaos there in that the Reek does have the horns by the mouth, but I'm wondering if it's a female, if that would be different.
Yeah, that would make sense. But yeah,
just spitballing. Not saying it is, not saying it isn't, but it's still a really cool species, right? And we're definitely afraid of it.
And it was crushing him too. I think the Beskar helmet definitely saved him from at least one instance of being crushed, because it would have definitely, it kind of almost like put its weight on him, which was nice kind of demonstration of what that armor can do. Because I think a lot of people won't really know how good Beskar is at this point.
Yep. And I think it was really cool. He even takes a couple of rocks or scrap hits to the helmet as well as the Jawas are throwing stuff at him. Yeah. And those are the hits that he doesn't really seem to care about. Mm-hmm. It's the other ones that are hitting him elsewhere that he's not having a good time. So I definitely liked seeing that as well.
And I know from some of the trailers, you're going to see like blaster bolts just kind of deflect right off of there. And correct me, I don't know if I'm totally right or wrong on this, but I believe Beskar is also resistant to lightsabers.
Yep.
I don't know if it's completely resistant or if it's like a partial resistance, but kind of like...
I believe it's in the area of cortosis.
Okay, yeah. I'd say in that part, I'd imagine you can pierce it, but it might be multiple swings or something like that.
Right. Which again is why Mandalorian versus Jedi Wars were such a big thing, because it was two forces that were elite super soldiers in their own respects, and why they're having such a hard time with each other and why it's such a big deal.
Yeah, if the Jedi are your ultimate peacekeepers, like when you if they're your nuclear option and it doesn't work against this other force, well then we got a big problem. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So we get basically the big reveal of this episode was that the baby Yoda is able to actually use the Force. And
but right before that, he pulls the knife ready to die.
Yes.
Like he's ready to go out like a warrior. Like Absolutely. He's only got his knife and he hunkers down.
And he prayed. It looked like he prayed, didn't he? Like he bowed his head.
I mean, yeah, a little bit, and he's ready to just go, look, I have a weapon in my hand and I'm going to die fighting.
Yeah, and we did skip over the scene. I mean, we mentioned it earlier where he says, I'm a Mandalorian, weapons are my religion. I believe that was during the meeting with the Jawas, but you see that kind of alluded to right here. Yeah, and on Rebels, they did go into Beskar being lightsaber resistant. Thank you, Anakin's twin. Yeah, that was during the Sabine and Bo-Katan kind of arc, which is... now that it's on Disney Plus, I get to watch Rebels all over again for free. Well, not for free.
I actually need to catch up on Rebels. I haven't finished Rebels. So.
Oh, okay. Well, it's amazing, and
I'm far enough, and I've seen enough playing like the video game on the app, on the phone and everything to know that I know more than I want to know, but it's fine.
But the ride is good. It's done well. But yeah, so I felt like he was being like he bowed his head almost in prayer, like this is my last act, So it definitely is kind of a religion to him. So I really like that. But yeah, he's able to he pulls the baby Yoda away. He saves the Yoda. Of course he has every interest to do that. I was surprised he brought it with him into like this pit, but I guess he didn't really know what was in there.
Would you trust the Jawas with a baby Yoda on a floating hoverpod?
Well, it's not the Jawas. You had Queel there too, the Ugnaught, but still he barely knows him. Yeah.
Yeah, even then.
Yeah.
But and it was a vibro knife. It was definitely a vibro knife. Like we see that it's on screen.
Yeah, I think so. I agree. And also it did the damage too. If it was a regular dagger, it wouldn't have slew the beast.
Oh yeah, it totally got in there and did its business.
Yeah, it wrecked face. But I loved, the baby Yoda picking this thing up, and it was this surreal moment where it's like almost like he prayed and his prayers were answered. So I wonder if that's going to have an impact on him, kind of advancing his maybe religious beliefs. Yeah, maybe tying him to the Force a little bit.
At the very least, I mean, kind of a Wookiee life debt kind of moment, right?
Oh my gosh, you're exactly right. I don't know if
right? You saved the life of a warrior in combat. Now he owes his charge something.
that's a good point. And a
Right?
lot of people have said in the chat so far today that there's no way he's actually going to turn this thing in.
He can't.
I don't, you know, I don't know how that's going to play out. He does end up getting the egg, bringing it back. It's this big, goofy, yolk-filled egg. I don't know. Reminded me of something out of Willy Wonka almost.
Oh yeah. It was so gross too. Whatever they mixed up to make that happen.
I think it was Cheese Whiz is what I think they used. I think it's Cheese Whiz. But yeah,
So
that's that was the fetch quest, and that was the whole aspect of this episode that I was just like, okay, it was a filler episode, but and filler episode is almost a derogatory term, and I'm just using that to be quick, because obviously there were things that happened that advanced the plot in this episode, so that's fine. But you get and he gets some help, and Queel helps him put the ship back together. They get all their parts, and it ends about kind of how you'd expect. So yeah, that was about it for episode 2. I think the big reveal was that the baby Yoda can use the Force, and then he saved the Mandalorian's life. And I think you kind of you pronounced that better than I had even thought about it. Is that he does kind of owe him now?
Yeah. And again, like, I understand what Chaos is saying there, that that's not really a Mandalorian thing, but like,
it's universal enough.
Yeah, I think it's a warrior mentality of like that was a fight. They were both in it together at that point. Mm-hmm. And then the other part that I'm looking at here is at the end when they're repairing the ship, they also repaired his armor, his chest plate, and his gauntlets. I was double checking those details on my rewatch.
I did not even notice that. That's
repaired. Yeah. Because prior to this, he lost his gauntlet real early on with the blurg. With the blurg, mm-hmm. And so that got repaired, and so did the chest plate. So I thought that was important.
It's good that that was the time for them to do that. So that when he shows up at the next fight and his armor's fine, you're like, wait a second, and somebody's probably gonna say, like, how did he get his stuff fixed? And then we'll be able to point back to this episode. Yeah,
they reported they did that, which again I was waiting for it because so often battle damage just doesn't happen, and they don't care, right? Yeah. In a lot of shows, and so they've shown us that they are paying attention to what happens to the armor and what happens to things.
This is so good for RPGers too. I mean, because a movie only has enough time to it has to skip a lot of the details, but in this show, which is effectively going to be like a 7-hour movie, and yes, and I'm going to respond to some of the questions in the chat here in a second, because you guys are right on point. The episodes are short. We've kind of gotten accustomed to like Game of Thrones, hour 15, for episodes, and this one was, I think, 33 minutes, and that's another reason.
But they get to the point, right? Like, there isn't a lot of fluff or filler, but I feel like what they do deliver, and not just verbally but visually as well, tells you what's going on, and you can read into it, just like we've done. We've spent more time talking about it than we did watching the show.
As a matter of fact, you're exactly right. I think we're at about an hour and a half right now, and it's I think it was, if you added both shows together, you're probably about an hour 15. So yeah.
And so our body count for this episode, I counted 9, plus 1 egg, plus 1 frog eaten by the baby.
Oh yes. I wonder about that frog. Now here's the thing. Suppose this baby is a clone of Yoda or not, or whatever. We know this baby's Force sensitive. What if this baby sees all this killing, turns dark side? Imagine a dark side Yoda. Yeah. No.
I mean, he's definitely not vegetarian. We've established that.
Yeah, but I think Yoda probably wasn't either.
Yoda roasted some stuff on Dagobah too, didn't he?
He had snakes. Like, I think that snake around his neck was a snack.
Yeah. And then, of course, he steals Luke's candy bar or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, at Galaxy's Edge, they actually have that exact kit that you can buy that Luke had. Oh, yeah. And they did their best to actually fill it with different foods that look exactly like Luke's foods. Like, there's the long pretzel sticks. And then they have
cool.
like trail mix and things that aren't going to melt out in the sun because they have it on like carts outside, which is really cool. But yes, so that's about it. And now, I mean, we got chapter 3 coming up next week, and it looks like he is going to be turning, going back to potentially turn this bounty in. So we're gonna have to see. My prediction is he does turn it in. What do you think, Brendon?
Yeah, I'm going that he's not. But again, I love that we have that conflict between, do I get the Beskar and do I save my people and rebuild my culture, or do I save this little child who saved my life, who now I have an investment in? So, man, it's at the very least, no matter what the decision gets made, it's going to be impactful, and obviously it's where the rest of the show is going to go.
Right. Absolutely. That's going to drive, that decision is going to drive everything else. I think he turns him in, and then like after collecting the reward, then goes back to save him or something like that.
Yeah.
Because that's going to drive the conflict. That's why we see at some point he's going to face this other I forget the actor's name, but like this Baron or whoever that has these death troopers. And that's who I presume is the big bad of the season. And what's going to drive that conflict if not, hey, you have our baby Yoda,
Yeah, so one of my friends who really introduced me into serious role playing years ago, he had a phrase all the time that he would use that was, icy actions have icy consequences. And that's for better and for worse, right? And we're going to see that this next episode. Yeah. So
one thing that's not going to happen, he's not just going to turn this thing in and forget about him, take his Beskar, go back. All the Mandalorians have shiny new armor, and everybody dances around.
That's not where this is going.
Yeah. It's not going to be high fives for everybody. All right. See you guys next season.
Good job. What's the next job?
Yeah, exactly. We know that that's not happening. So
and even built up that this job is atypical, that this job is off the record, that this job is, like not really a sanctioned hunt anyway, which is probably maybe why why there's other people involved too in the hunt. So
I think the thing that's going to drive it is the Doctor. I think that Doctor is going to be like the good guy Imperial that seeks out the Mandalorians. Like some kind of discussion is like, the child, they're going to kill him. I wanted him alive. You've got to do something, and then he goes back into the place, and that's what I think.
Yeah.
We'll see. Oh, good. I'm knocking things over. All right. Well, I think that's about all the time we have. I want to thank everybody for hanging out with us in the chat. Thanks for all the questions. And Brendon, definitely want to thank you for hanging out with us today. And, this was great, and I definitely appreciate you coming on. And
pleasure.
Absolutely. So check out if you're interested in the helmet, send me an email and we'll connect you guys, and we'll be talking more to you later. And the Las Vegas Open coming on up in January?
Yeah, Las Vegas Open is the end of January. It's where LJ and I really kind of LJ had made a name for himself, but that's where I got introduced to Legion, a lot more publicly. Mm-hmm. And this is going to be even bigger than last year. We've got way more going on. We've got a story event going on, in addition to running basically 2 grand championships in a weekend. And so it's going to be a massive Star Wars Legion event. The logistics behind it make me go nuts, but that's why we do it, and we love it. So Las Vegas Open is really a can't miss type event.
Plus you're in Las Vegas, so there's so much to do.
Yeah, and it's in Vegas, so there's plenty to see, plenty to hang out. And it is the final Grand Championship in North America before Worlds. So it's really the last stop on the train, and it's going to be a big stop. It's not going to be a little stop. So.
Worlds is going to be at Adepticon in March?
Yep, Adepticon. It's either the last weekend of March or the first weekend of April at Adepticon. And if you haven't been to Adepticon and you like miniature wargaming at all, just stop missing it, because
I need to try and hit
Adepticon this year. Else altogether. I've been wargaming since 2007, and it's it's the Sturgis of wargaming, and I love it. So I'm wearing an Adepticon shirt right now. That's how much I love it. So
awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for hanging out, and thank you guys. And we're gonna sign off here, and we will see you next Sunday. So tell your friends. Every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, I'm gonna bring to you Mando chat. So it'll be I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna call it chapter 2 or part 2 because this was part 1. I'm just gonna skip and go straight to part 3. We're gonna go Mando chat chapter 3. All right. Take care, guys.
Joining us, everybody.